All right, welcome everyone to another Sky Community Call session to this July the 30th, 2025. And yeah, I'm super excited to announce our guest today. It's the team from Atlas Axis, so the team that's working on this crazy project called the Atlas. We're going to be listening and hearing from them a little bit more. But before that, we have Feli joining us from Viridian, who's going to be giving us the weather news and see how things are working lately. So Feli, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna put it on last 7 days so that we got the time frame. We already looked at July last week, so today we are going back to the usual 7-day review. So first of all, we wanted to highlight that we've seen growth in the whole DeFi space over the week, mostly from Ethena and Aave. So Ethena has been going up by 500 million this week, and also Aave has seen some growth, not as big, but still growth, around 700 million, but it doesn't look that big when you compare it to the rest of the graph. And something that's really interesting to note is, don't pay attention to this setup thing, something's wrong with it. But Ethena still is paying a premium over the SSR based on the rates. They are still hovering around 11-12%. And Aave still experiencing growth, even though they are still below the SSR, they are closing in. The SSR is at 4.5%, USDC from Aave is at 4%, USDT lagging a little bit behind there. We've seen a little growth for Sky in this period. It's been small but noticeable, mostly on USDS in the last couple of days. So 100 million there. Moving on to USDS, and sorry, I'm going back and forth with my notes. USDS has grown from 3.3 billion in last Thursday to around 4.2 billion today, and most of that was driven by the three key products that we have. It's Pendle, the Pendle Pool, Sky Token Rewards, and Sky Savings. If we take all of those out, we see that it's pretty much consistent over the period. Really want to highlight Pendle being almost doubling in this past week due to this SPK points farm being really successful these past few days. Also, the token rewards growing as well. Sky Savings, of course, being this baseline here. Sky Savings has seen a lot of growth in the past couple of days, mostly driven by whales. There was one whale that deposited 150 million just yesterday, so that's why we see this really nice upwards trend. But even if we take them out, we see that the trend is pretty stable at around 1 billion. Speaking our token rewards, going further down, the Sky Farm and the SPK Farm have grown over these past few days. The SPK Farm has grown a lot more. It's gone from 770 million over to more than 1 billion in deposits, driven mostly by these crypto funds. And one thing to notice, this really interesting behavior from the crypto funds on the Sky Fund that have withdrawn their deposit over the weekend. And we've seen this time and time again, where they sometimes find better some alternatives on centralized exchanges or something, so they withdraw over the weekend. Ethena still is seeing growth, but their growth is mostly due to the Spark allocation. Once again, as we saw last week, it's been increasing. Last week we saw it was at 250 million for both USD and SUSD, and it's grown almost 100% since then. Both 475 million on USD and the same for SUSD. For Pendle, we see this trend upwards of the USDS that's deposited in there, driven by the SPK pool. We believe this is due to a correlation between the SPK price rallying on Friday and over the weekend. But apart from that, we see that Ethereum's EUSD offering on Pendle is growing a little bit, and so has been SUSD. And to give a little update on the final thing, SPAC is still dominating USDS borrowing demands by a factor of 5 to 8 times over Spark. So yeah, a really nice week for Sky ecosystem, this one, and we expect to see some more growth over the coming weeks.
Nice. Thanks for that, Felipe. If anyone has any questions, yeah, feel free to post them in the chat. I see that I don't know, Felipe, if you can see the chat, but Chris and Mox, they're discussing about the 12% APY. It tends to be pretty attention grabbing. And yeah, there's a comment about Sky's ability to react on changing market conditions, 12% versus 4.5%.
Yeah,
4.5%.
yeah, it's hard to react that fast to these market conditions. I I've got my own opinions on it, but I don't know.
Not financial advice.
Yeah, no
In
financial
terms of
advice by any means.
in terms of the weekend, I'm curious. I don't know if you guys have analyzed it and what I was curious why there might be interesting opportunities on centralized exchanges during the weekend.
We tried to find them, and I believe we had a look at Binance a few weeks back, because this has been ongoing for quite some time now. It's not always the crypto funds; it's sometimes some whales who are kind of big and they are noticeable. But yeah, they usually go over to Binance. We don't know if they are using the earn option in there because the APY is really close to Aves, or if they are trying some, I don't know, volatility-based algorithm or something. But there's no real easy way to know what they are actually doing.
Nice. Makes sense. All right, perfect. I don't see any more questions or comments. So thank you, Felipe, for joining us.
No, you're welcome.
Super
And
helpful.
as always, you can have a look at the dashboards. You can reach out to us on Discord or Telegram.
Sounds great.
Your choice.
Thank you, Felipe. All right, Adam, I just invited Lex to stage. Hopefully she can make it.
Perfect. All right. Well, let me start us off here. All right. Can people see this okay?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Well, first, thanks everyone for having us here. We're going to do something a little bit different today. LB is the leader of the Atlas Axis team, and I think you've heard him give some great presentations before, including one on the Sky primitives and the agent framework that I would highly recommend checking out if you haven't already done so, though I guess I am biased there. But what we thought today we would do is we'd have two team members on our team speak. So I'll go first, and then my colleague Lex will go. And then also our colleague Navigator is in the chat. So we'll probably be maybe fielding some questions in real time as we're going here. But I think a lot of the goal of this is just to share a different perspective. So I don't think I'm going to have anything here that is necessarily new information if you've been coming to these calls before. But I think about Sky and what we're trying to do is a pretty big thing. And so if you think about that like story of like you have people close their eyes and touch the elephant, and one person's like, "Oh, it's a wall," and one's like, "It's a snake," or whatever. I think Sky is can kind of be the same way. And so hopefully what I can give you here is just a different perspective that, depending on, may resonate with you, may not, but may just give you kind of a different way of looking at some things. So what I'm going to try to do here is kind of take a top-down perspective and just start with at least one conceptualization of like what the overall goal that we're trying to achieve here is, and then talk about the people who are working towards that and how the Atlas and then Atlas axis fits into making that happen. And then at the end, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about AI and how that also fits into everything. So starting with goals, I think there are a lot of different ways that you could think about like what Sky is trying to do, and probably there are different goals that even for the people on this call and the people on the teams get people excited about. So I think you could be excited about creating this decentralized stable coin. You could be excited about creating this lean, mean yield generating machine. I think you could be excited about just like maybe fully realizing the vision of DAOs that maybe hasn't been done to date. But one way of thinking about it that gets me excited is this idea of empowering exceptional teams. And so one of the things I think about is like we've probably all had some experience, maybe if we're lucky, we're having it right now, where we're on some team where we feel like we're like really aligned with our team, like we enjoy working with our team, we're like being productive, we're kicking ass and taking names together, and that feels really good. And I think at least one way I think about what Sky is doing is creating this environment where lots of these teams can exist and can be really effective in pursuing their own goals. And so, I mean, that's kind of the vision of what previously was sub DAOs. Now we call them stars or agents, but essentially each of these stars can be a pretty lean team if you think about like the team at Spark or the team at Grove, and they can really focus on doing what they want to do, right? They can focus on allocating to RWAs or allocating to DeFi protocols on Ethereum, and they don't have to think about a lot of other stuff because that stuff is taken care of them for them by Sky or by some of these different GovOps actors that we're going to talk about. So, you talk about like Smart, well, they just get access to this capital from Sky's collateral portfolio. They don't have to have like another whole arm of their business to source that capital and to figure that out. You think about a lot of the like infrastructure stuff that's kind of taken care of by Sky or by the operational executor agent. Again, they don't have to kind of have all those people do that. So they really get to have this team that is like their best team that's focused on what they really want to do. And I think that also comes into empowering new teams in the future where, I think probably all of us have been around DeFi for a while, and you got to watch out for being rugged. And if you're thinking about investing in a new project, you got to ask yourself, who are these people and how do I know they're not just going to disappear with my money? And I think one underappreciated aspect of this agent system is that when you start one of these stars, you actually don't have control of user funds yourself. That's done by these Sky GovOps actors. And so it's actually impossible for you to rug your users in that way. I mean, you could just like go away and then we just return the money to you at some point, but they can't just like take that money and just send it wherever they want to. And that I think can actually be really empowering for teams in the future of if you are an anonymous actor or you are a team that's just getting started but has a really good idea, as kind of a user or an investor, you can be comfortable participating in that, knowing that you've got this GovOps apparatus around you. So again, I think lots of different ways of kind of thinking about what's exciting about Sky, but this is one way of thinking about it that gets me excited. So then building on that teams a little bit, one of the things that I really want to share with you is just who are all the different teams that are contributing to making this vision happen. Because I think if you're on these community calls or you're on the forum sometimes, you have a certain person come on or you see a certain person post, but you may not have a sense of all of the different actors who are involved in this and how they're working together. And it may kind of seem like, well, there's not a lot of communication happening or there's not a lot going on. And I think the reality is actually like a ton going on. But some of that is maybe stuff you're not seeing yet until it kind of makes it onto the forum. But I want to just try to give you in like, it's 2 pages here, kind of an overview of some of the different players here. So governance facilitators, I think if you've been on the forum, you've probably seen them, but they keep a lot of the governance processes for Sky on track. So they're the ones who actually put up the polls and the executive votes that are you see every week or every 2 weeks. They're the ones who are working with the spell teams to actually oversee the development of the code there. They're conducting a lot of other governance processes around aligned delegates, around other things like that. So really important to just kind of keep things on track. And then some of those team members have also been contributing to some of the risk assessments that have been going on around smart contract and administrative risk. We've got the aligned delegates. So I think we've got a few of them on this call, and you've probably also seen them on the forum, but they're a little bit the representatives in the representative democracy, so to speak, of Sky, and they also play a really important role in providing security to governance of essentially making sure that proposals aren't voted on that aren't actually in the best interest of the protocol and have any malicious aspect to them. And several of the team members there have also been contributing to that risk assessment. Atlas Axis, this is us. We'll be talking more about us later, but we're essentially focused on continually improving the Atlas, which is kind of our source of shared knowledge. We'll also talk about that a little bit more later. And we're in the process of transitioning to this role. It's called the core executor agent that's basically handling a lot of these Sky core processes in this new world where we have kind of Sky core and more responsibilities getting transitioned to stars. We've got ecosystem slash Dowcraft. So Juan here, part of ecosystem, but they've been the facilitators for all 4 of the other scopes. So they do a tremendous amount in budgets, overseeing things, just again, kind of making sure like everything, all the trains run on time for Sky. So do tremendous work there. And then they're also transitioning this role of being one of these, what we call operational executor agents, supporting some of the individual stars. And when they're wearing that hat, so to speak, Dowcraft is kind of the name they're operating under if you ever see that in the Atlas or in any documents. We've got Powerhouse, which is a technology organization that's focused on building infrastructure to power everything that we're doing here and to actually make this work and be more efficient. And we'll also come back to that a little bit later. We've got these development teams. So 2 of them, DeWiz and Sidestream, are kind of the spell teams that are crafting these Sky core spells and are going to be reviewing star spells in the future. So you may have seen those names come up on the forum, like improving the technical aspects of something. And then we have other development teams, one called Jetstream that focuses more on front end stuff, one called Pull Up Labs that has been developing a lot of infrastructure that's used by Sky. So lots of different people involved there. And then I think also a lot of other functions beyond that of Viridian Lab. So that's Felipe we just heard from, Rajiv we've heard from before. BA Labs does a lot of work advising on financial matters. And then there are also a lot of unsung heroes, I kind of call it, who are doing like legal, business development, marketing, or communications that maybe don't have a organization around them that you see on the forum, but that are also kind of necessary and really important parts to everything that we're doing here. And then finally, we've got the actual stars themselves. So Spark and Grove so far, and then Launch Agent 2, which is a Solana focused star, Launch Agent 3, which is a USDS adoption focused star. I know these are not the most exciting names right now, and then a lot more to come. So you can see a lot of different players involved that are all kind of working and collaborating together to realize this vision of where we're going. So I think that idea of having all these different teams working together to kind of build the future of Sky is really, at least for me, one way that resonates pretty strongly in terms of what is the Atlas. And so I think if I had to describe it in words, I'd say it's our shared knowledge base. And so you think about having all those teams, and one of the, I think, problems you can really run into is how do all those teams collaborate effectively together? Because you can imagine that just Atlas Axis and BA Labs, we have all sorts of communications with them about developing the risk framework and different aspects of that. But I think one of the things you probably saw in those previous slides is all these teams are pretty specialized. And so it's almost always not one team that can do something or even two teams, but a lot of different teams that are involved in that. And so I think one of the ways that the Atlas can be really valuable is kind of removing that siloed information and being one place that everyone can look at to know what's going on, and also to look at and say, hey, this thing doesn't make sense to me so much. So to make this a little bit concrete, here. So I'm gonna, I guess, might channel my inner Rune for a sec and show the Atlas Explorer here. But here I'm focusing on this section of the documents about this upgrade from Maker to Sky. And so this was something that some aspects of this are still in process, but we did earlier this year in this first phase. And so, I mean, one way to think about this is just like this was an important governance thing that we needed to make sure that we were all collectively on board with, of upgrading from Maker to Sky as the core governance token of the protocol. Okay, definitely makes sense. But I think the other aspect of this is, if you look at this content in the Atlas here, it really provides a lot of structure to what we're doing here. It says, hey, this upgrade is going to proceed in these 3 phases, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It says, okay, phase 1 is going to happen. When's it going to happen? It's going to happen May 15th. And what needs to be done for it? Well, in this case, actually 11 different things need to be done. And you can imagine all of these require some combination of, in some cases, financial expertise of what needs to be done here and how it should be done. All of them require actual technical changes that may be implemented or audited or reviewed by different teams. And they also have a governance aspect here. So I think one of the real values that the Atlas can provide is, I think sometimes, we kind of say, we think better when we have to like write something down. And I think with something like this, having to write it down and say, hey, we really do have to do all 11 of these things is really important in clarifying and making sure we're not missing anything, where maybe it's easy to just kind of initially say like, okay, we need to upgrade the protocol, we need to upgrade everything to use Sky instead of Maker, but it maybe is easy to forget of like, okay, we need to deploy the delegate contracts, we need to do this, we need to do that. And this keeps us all on the same page. I think the other aspect of that is also just it being public, where anyone can look at it and say like, hey, this doesn't look right. Because I think we probably all had whatever system we work in, whether it's Notion or something else, we have something we wrote 6 months ago and we wrote it and now it's not relevant at all because 10 different things have changed and we never updated it. And I think that's another area where having it be public means anyone can look at it and be like, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. And then we get it fixed versus kind of having it sit there. Other things important about the Atlas from my perspective, one is this idea of it being really comprehensive, of going from things that are very high level to things that are very detailed. Where if you read the Atlas a little bit, there's some things that are really just about like the different roles of the entities, or in some cases very abstract about like what does it mean, what does alignment mean, what does it mean to kind of basically be working in like the best interests of the protocol. But then there are some things that are really detailed of if you want to bridge funds in the Spark liquidity layer from Ethereum mainnet to base, here are the 10 steps you need to follow to do that. And that's really important ultimately. So everything we do is in here and really accomplishes this first goal, but it's also a challenge, as we'll get to, of it just means we have a lot of content, and a lot of content at very different levels of specificity. And then finally, this idea of the Atlas being a living document. So if it reflects our collective knowledge, then it should grow as our collective knowledge grows. And part of that is us figuring out more over time about what works and what doesn't. I think especially right now, another part of it is just us getting on paper what is in our heads, right? Where if you were a investment analyst and I said, what makes a good investment? You've been an investment analyst for years, maybe you like make good investments, but if I kind of say you have to put on paper like exactly what your process is to do your investments, that would probably be like a pretty like challenging and maybe annoying question to ask you. And that's kind of the process that we actually end up kind of doing with ourselves and other stakeholders in this ecosystem on a pretty regular basis, maybe sometimes to the frustration of some of our partners. And so then that kind of, I think, logically leads into, okay, what is Atlas Axis? And we're kind of the team that is basically charged with building out that knowledge base over time. And we do that a few different ways. Partly we do it through internally driven improvements. So just as we're working with the Atlas or we're working with other stakeholders, we identify things where we say, hey, this isn't as clear as it could be. This isn't working as well as we want it to be. And we'll kind of internally generate issues and then propose improvements to those. But we also do a ton with different stakeholders. So we collaborate a ton with BA Labs on the development of the risk framework. We're working with the spell teams on the development of more documentation around the governance security process. And then finally, we also take into account community feedback. And I think this is one thing I'd really want to emphasize here. I know sometimes you may like post something on the forum and you don't get a response to it, but I'll say, at least from my perspective, I think our team is reading everything that gets written on the forum. And it may be that you have some idea and you think it's a great idea, but it's actually not a good idea because of reasons X, Y, and Z that you don't know about. Or it may be that's a great idea and there are just 10 other things on the roadmap before it. Or it may be that's a great idea and it'll be incorporated at some point. I think you've seen that with like renaming like sealing and activation of staking or some other changes. But even though everything is not getting a immediate response, I think all of that stuff is getting kind of read and incorporated into our heads. And then in addition to this role on Atlas development, as I mentioned before, we're transitioning to this core executor agent role. And so part of that continues to be those Atlas improvements, but it also involves managing some of these Sky core processes. So like if you've been following the forum, you may have noticed some forum posts for us on the SP Beam, which lets us update some key interest rates in the system on a more real-time basis than executive votes. And we kind of make those changes based on the recommendations of Bay Labs and with input from the ecosystem team. But that's kind of an example of those type of Sky core processes. And so I think then that leads to this discussion about AI. And I think AI is really important for accelerating all of those things and in a way resolving some of the challenges that we run into trying to execute on that idea of the Atlas. And I think of that broadly in three categories here. So the first one is comprehension. And basically this is, I think we've gotten some feedback about this of people read the atlas, and I think it would be fair to say it's not the most light beach reading type document. It's trying to be very precise, cover sometimes very technical concepts, and that's good. It's important that it's precise, but it can mean that if you're just trying to kind of read it or understand something, it's not always as easy if you're not kind of steeped in that. And I think that's a really hard just challenge in the text itself to kind of balance those two things. But I think that's a really valuable way where AI could come in, where you can imagine the future. You don't have to read the atlas. You just ask an agent and it summarizes what you want to know about it. And it tells you at your level of comprehension or even in the language that you're working with the answer to your question. And I think we've already seen some, I know there's at least one community developed tool that's kind of an AI agent that reads the atlas, but there's a lot more coming for that in the future. And I think that resolution of that tension between precision and depth versus accessibility, kind of dissolving that is really important, because we don't want the atlas to be this like Talmudic document that like only a small set of people can understand. We want anyone to be able to understand it and interact with it. Another part is just improving the consistency and I would say the quality of the atlas. So right now the atlas is already a pretty big set of documents, and it's written by humans. So we're imperfect, and it definitely has areas where it could be improved. And I hope those are relatively small, but there are definitely aspects like that. And as we increase the amount of knowledge we have in the atlas, and we increase these documents 10 times, 100 times, it's going to get even more challenging to make sure that everything is consistent and as precise as it can be, and that there's not missing logic anywhere. And I think this is another area where AI can be really helpful in identifying opportunities for improvement and kind of maintaining a very high quality bar, even as we're just having a lot of documents and adding a lot of documents at a relatively rapid pace. And then the final aspect, and this is, I mean, in a way more selfish for Atlas Access, though also feeds into the rest of the ecosystem, is just we want to accelerate our own process. So Atlas Access is a pretty small team. We have 5 people on the team right now. And right now it's a pretty manual process of we're doing these edits, and I think we're really fortunate to have a great team, but there's a certain amount of time that it takes to do one of these edits, and there's a certain number of people, so there's some just velocity that we can support. And as we have more stars, more learning, more knowledge, we want to make sure that Atlas Access is never the limiting factor there. So you can imagine a lot of different ways that you could use AI to just accelerate our own process of reviewing drafts we've created, of doing initial drafts, of helping identify documents that need to be changed. A lot of different ideas there that we're exploring. And I think the other aspect there too is not only processes within Atlas Access, but also processes within the rest of the ecosystem. So you can think of, if the Atlas is supposed to be this essentially source of truth for the entire ecosystem, then anything that anyone does needs to get reflected in the Atlas, right? If a new deployment to an allocation system instance gets made, that needs to be reflected. If a payment for accessibility rewards gets paid, that needs to be reflected. And what we want is for all of that information being in the Atlas to be very seamless, to just have it be reflected, just to be part of a very natural business process versus kind of another thing you have to do on top of your normal workflow, because then it's just not going to get done in reality as people are busy. So that's a lot of what we're working on. We've got some great help from both Powerhouse, that's building some of that tooling for those business processes, as well as other people who are working on developing these AI tools. But overall, all of this fits into this idea of, I feel like flywheel can be an overused term in the crypto or technology, but I think we are kind of creating this flywheel team here where we have these great teams that are doing very cool things. We're capturing what they do and documenting it. We're creating this infrastructure that then builds processes around that, accelerating with AI, and then growing more teams and just pushing that cycle. So with that, I'll give a little bit of a call out here. We are looking for new team members at Atlas Access. So I'll show a little bit. I think one of my colleagues will hopefully be pasting in the chat right now a link to where you can see that if you're interested. But we would love to have you on board to help us with this if this was exciting to you. But thank you so much, everyone.
Nice. I like the shameless plug, Adam. There's this question actually by Chris regarding the contributors and the pass point and knowing who people are to reduce the chance of being rugged. So I guess it's a matter of like trust and yeah, the question is like, how do we know that people at Sky aren't the same person given the emphasis on anonymity? Like, for instance, the facilitator could be an AD and could be an executor that could also lead the stars. So how do we know that it's not just one person, very, very smart, working from a bunker, working 24 hours a day? I don't know if you want to touch a little bit on the whistleblower program or, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so first, I think it's a really good question, and it's one that we've talked about as a team. I think maybe there are two broad ways to answer that. So one is, I think what Juan was getting at is that there is an existing whistleblower program where essentially you can get paid if you identify someone who is being misaligned by being in two roles at the same time. So that's definitely a protection that is in place. But I think to some extent, you have to assume that, look, someone could, to your point, someone could be really smart and so smart that they have completely separate infrastructure set up for all these and that someone can't catch them. And I think ultimately, like the way we need to be thinking about architecting ourselves is being resilient to a situation where all these actors are the same actor. And that's not necessarily an easy problem to solve, but that's exactly the type of problem that we're thinking about on a long-term basis. So if that's what you're excited about thinking about, we would love to think about it with you.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that. And regarding the AI, this is a personal point, but I think that AI is not only a super great way of actually getting to where we get to be, but it's more of a necessity, right? Like I like giving this example or analogy. When you visit a country, you not necessarily want to read all the rules, but you kind of like go around and you ask how things work. So the AI is like the perfect tool to do that. When you have the atlas and you could say like, what can I do? What can I not do? So as a customer or as a client, as a user, you have this thing. And then of course helping the editors and helping the people drafting things. That's the second point that you mentioned. Super important to 10x your output. And then the last one that you mentioned is for the tools, right? For other agents, for dashboards, for anything that needs to feed from there. So I think it's super important to have it. That's why I'm super excited about this.
Yeah. I see there's one more question from Rachel.
Yes.
Does Atlas Access hold the sole authority to update the Atlas? No, and actually, we don't really have any authority to update the Atlas. We kind of have, I guess, a responsibility to propose things for it, but everything that goes into the Atlas goes up for a poll by Sky holders. So we propose, but we don't decide, so to speak, and other people can propose as well. I believe the governance facilitators have done one or two proposals themselves for improvements they wanted to make, and any member of the community can propose themselves. There are some anti-spam type protections around that, But if you can, if you want to, you can definitely propose yourself. Though to some degree, I would say if you have an idea you're excited about, reach out to us and let's work together to do it in the best way we can. But definitely don't want it to be exclusive to us.
Nice. Thank you very much for that,
Yeah.
Adam. Lex, are you there? I don't know if your sound is good.
Let's try it out. Do you hear me, guys?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. I had a little bit of technical issues here.
No worries.
Okay, so Juan, you see my screen, right?
Yes, we see the Atlas slide.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, Adam did a really good presentation here about the Atlas. And first I was thinking about having some kind of poll here to see what everyone kind of thinks about the Atlas, what it means to you. But I wasn't sure about the technique with crowdcast, and now I'm very happy I didn't try anything like that because just presenting seemed to be difficult for me to do. So the Atlas, what it is, it's a foundational set of rules for our ecosystem. You can kind of think of it as like our constitution, but it's also like a civil law code. So it's very detailed. We have scenarios, we have precedents. So you can find like everything in the Atlas. And for me, what that actually means is knowledge itself is power. And the Atlas for me empowers everyone by making the rules and logic of the ecosystem transparent. So in this case, it's supposed to be a single accessible source of truth. So you should not have to look into different kind of places in the forum, in different kind of chats. It should all be in this big document. So you can kind of see it as a compass. So it's quite handy if you want to walk towards north, you should know where north actually is pointing. So that is kind of like my ethos when I'm working with Atlas and in Atlas Access team, is that I would like to empower anyone who wants to learn about the ecosystem, and we're doing that through the Atlas. And here we have a quote from the ad that is out now. We're recruiting people. And this is what kind of caught my eye when I looked to join the Atlas Access team. This was a text by LB, who is our leader. And we look for people who feel sincere love for the mission, people who want to build for a future whose full bloom they will never live to see or will not live to see. And that is kind of what inspired me. And that's like our mission and long-term goal for what we're doing. And then I want to discuss a little bit about the governance process, because we didn't really get any questions about the Atlas. I mean, Adam got a couple now that he responded. So I was kind of preparing a little bit about the governance process, but if anyone has a question, just feel free to ask them. So there's certain ways that we can change the Atlas, and it's by the weekly governance cycle and also by the monthly governance cycle. So the weekly governance cycle can also be split up into two. We have the operational weekly cycle and we have the Atlas edit weekly cycle. For the operational weekly cycle, the only one who can propose edit to change these documents that are facilitators and recognized ecosystem actors. And for them to do this kind of changes, first they need to do a forum post. Then usually the workflow is a governance poll. And after that, it's an executive vote. And you see quite a lot of these like every week on the forum. It's when we want to change different kind of parameters in the ecosystem. And then we also, let me just check the chat if there's anything here. Yes, I will actually talk a little bit about the active data as well. I'll be there. But yeah, so we also have Atlas Edit Weekly cycle, which is the cycle usually Atlas Access is using. And anyone can propose an edit, but except for aligned delegate. However, it needs to be triggered by a prime delegate. So here's like a requirement. So not everyone can actually push different kind of proposals that will be into governance poll. There's first this little hint here by the prime delegate who will do an evaluation and see, do they support this proposal? It's just because there should not be an overload proposal that later on goes into governance polls. And then there's a forum post, and then it's also a governance poll after this. And we also have the monthly governance cycle. Here can also anyone can propose edits that goes to the monthly governance cycle. Here we also have a trigger requirement. There must be a prime delegate who triggers a proposal. And there's also some additional requirements in the sense that there are specific times that this proposal needs to be done. There's a request for comment, and there's also like a frozen period where the proposal cannot be edited. And here as well, we need to have a forum post, and then we'll have a governance poll. And as LB was saying here in the chat, there's also certain documents that can be edited without these kind of processes. For example, active data documents. And a good example of that is aligned delegates. There's a list of the aligned delegates that we have in the ecosystem. And it doesn't make sense that it will be a forum post and a governance poll to approve an aligned delegate. So in this case, the aligned delegate will post on a forum. The governance facilitator will look through the forum post, make sure that everything is correct. And if everything is correct, the governance facilitator have the authority to directly update the atlas and include a new aligned delegate into that list. So certain documents can be updated by active data, but that is specifically documented in the atlas. If that is not, we always have to check like, why is this document updated? So if it hasn't been an active data document, hasn't been the operational weekly cycle, that has edit weekly cycle or the monthly governance cycle, the atlas should not be able to be updated. And then, of course, after a proposal, there needs to be a voting process. And this is just the voting process for Sky Core. Right now, of course, we have several agents coming on board, and they have different kind of voting process compared to Sky Core. So this is just Sky Core, and we have governance polls, and we have executive votes. And the people who vote is Sky holders, and Sky holders can delegate their tokens to aligned delegates, not the tokens, of course, but their voting power. And it's the Sky staking, which a lot of people like to do now, of course, because there's very great rewards to be had. So aligned delegates, they will vote on governance polls, and they will also vote on executive votes. And every time they vote, they should do a post on the forum explaining why they vote yes or why they vote no. And they should also describe a little bit more than just say yes and no. They should describe, I think this is aligned or this is misaligned, and the reasoning because of this. And for people, like you can say in general that if something goes to a governance poll, it's usually because it's just like some kind of things that is not on chain. For anything to be updated on chain, it needs to go through an executive vote, which is also called a spell. And a spell is sorry. So if there are going to be smart contract changes, that is like on chain, and that needs to go through an executive vote. So if we're going to change a document in the atlas, that doesn't really take effect on chain. If we change a parameter there, that is just like a documentation, like you would document on a forum or you would document in a Google document. It doesn't really take effect. For it to take effect, it needs to go through an executive vote. So that is kind of why we have the spells then later on enacting a different kind of voting systems that we have decided and what we have processed here. So I'm going to stop here and see if anyone had any questions. Well, there seem to be some things here.
Nice. Thanks for that, Lex. I think it was quite clear. I like how you differentiate the on-chain and the off-chain process. Join us. Okay, so the message is clear, guys. You should join Atlas Access. Reach out if you want to help craft this crazy government or governance design. There is a question. It was answered in the chat already, but maybe we can answer it here. Do you guys plan to add AI chat so people can interact with the Atlas? I think it would make the Atlas 100 times more usable for many.
Yeah, so I can definitely respond to some of that. We are working with Powerhouse and Archon, our AI team. And I think there are definitely improvements that were going to be made with having an AI chat. I don't know if you saw it, but there was other user who have done a tool which is now connected to the Explorer. So you can actually do questions with AI now through the Explorer web page. And So we're definitely hoping it's going to be evolving a lot. And also, like Adam said, in the future, the plan is that you can actually talk to the Atlas and discuss it with the AI and get different kind of answers. And even in your mother tongue. So for example, if you do not have English as your first language, maybe it's Spanish or German, you will be able to ask in your own language and you will get that answer back in the same language. So there's definitely a lot of improvements that will happen soon. And we're doing it as reader friendly as we can right now. But yes, there's definitely going to be an AI chat, and already some improvements have been made on the Explorer webpage.
Nice. I think Adam mentioned it already, but there's one that was launched on it was announced on the forum by Nico with K. It's skynav.io. So again, I haven't tried it much. Just at your own risk, as always. It's AI, so it's never super accurate, but you can test it, give feedback. Some people I've seen that they're already giving feedback to him, and he's implementing it quite fast. So it's quite exciting to see the community stepping up and seeing these things. All right. I don't see any more questions. What's the best way for people to, if they want to join, they see this video later and they want to join the team, what's the best place to reach out? Is it your Discord? Is it on the forum?
Yeah, come to Discord, and I think also LB was also mentioning something in the chat here. But just reach out on a Discord, and we will be able to respond. By the way, I'm sharing my screen here again, Juan, if anyone can see it. So this
Yes, we
is
can.
the Explorer, and here you have this little computer, and you can hear how to use Atlas with AI, and you can now download the different kind of scopes in HTML, and you can also click here Sky Atlas Navigator, and you can discuss it with the same tool that you were just showing from the forum.
Nice. Adam just posted a link. Adam, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself to mention what this link is. I'll try to put it on a screen to see if it shows on the recording.
Oh yeah, it's just a link
Yes.
to the forum where you can apply if you want to. So just giving coming to Discord is great, or here's the super the answer, go to this link.
Nice. All right. Very, very excited for this and for what's coming. Thank you guys for joining us. It was very interesting. And again, I'm a bit of a governance geek, so I like seeing what you guys come up with and see how this helps shape DAOs in general, but more specifically Sky and the stars. And it's very exciting to see what you guys are doing on a weekly basis.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, and appreciate all the collaboration with you. I think it's really working with you and the other stakeholders that kind of actually pushes that governance process forward, because it's kind of ideas encountering the real world.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam and Lex, and LB in the chat. And yeah, thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the forum and Discord. Have a nice one.
Thank you so much.